It falls to me as current BERA President to give you a very warm welcome to the 2014 BERA Annual Conference. I'd like to welcome all our delegates, but especially, if I may, those from overseas, of whom there is a great number here, and especially those who are coming to BERA for the first time, and we hope you get a lot out of it so that you'll come back for years to come. And also, I'd like on this occasion when we're celebrating 40 years of BERA to particularly welcome those of you who've been around a long time, if I might put it like that. There are some people whose memories of BERA go back quite some way. The first BERA conference took place in 1974, 40 years ago in Birmingham. And here we are 40 years on. I'm going to say a few words about BERA, but that'll come a bit later on, because the first thing I'd like to do is ask Professor Felicity Whiteley, who is the chair of our conference committee, to draw your attention to a few small but very important matters. Felicity.
Thank you very much, Ian. What I would like to say is that, sorry, too close. I just want to draw people's attention to the colour of badges that people are wearing. Most of you will actually have a white badge because you're a member of BERA. Those of you who are yellow badges are people who are not members. So I would call upon all the people with a white badge to adopt somebody who has a yellow badge and ask them to join. That way we will make everybody happy. As you might notice, and I will model it for you, I have a bright red t-shirt on with BERA written all over it. Those of us who have the t-shirts are conference committee and the people who work in the BERA office. So please ask us any questions you want or collar us wherever you like. People with pink badges are exhibitors, and thank them very much for coming. And people with green badges are the other people you want to look out for. Those are our SIG conveners. So if you want to join a SIG, find someone with a green badge and ask them to point out the relevant person. I think that's basically it, Ian, but please have a wonderful conference.
Thank you very much, Felicity, and thank you for all the hard work of your committee in setting up the conference this year. More of that later on during our events. Well, we are celebrating our 40th birthday. We have been celebrating it and we will continue to celebrate it. But we're also acknowledging that the B in BERA is going to stay as it has been. It's 4 countries that we seek to work with and in, and that's the case for the foreseeable future. But I think we in BERA will want to explore the implications and ramifications of last week's very important decision made by our colleagues in the north. And indeed there are quite a few Scottish representatives here today, and I'll say a bit more about that relationship in a little while. We're officially launching the conference now, but of course the early career researchers have been hard at it all morning as well, had very full sessions since 9 o'clock-ish this morning. For the main conference, we have an excellent programme for you: keynotes, spotlight sessions, symposia, papers, some of which have already been foreshadowed in the national press this morning, as you may know, a panel later on today, exhibitions, giveaways, of which more later, and 10-pin bowling. In this next half hour, we have many important things to do. In a moment, we're going to be welcome to the Institute of Education. Then there'll be some reflections on the current year from me and some thoughts about the 40 years. Then we have a big thanks to lots of people, including some individuals, and then a number of very important awards, including the first award of the John Nisbet Fellowship. But first of all, I'd like to invite Chris Husbands, the Director of the Institute of Education, to welcome you to this site.
Good afternoon. It's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you, and in total, although not quite at the moment, there'll be over 900 of you to this year's BERA conference at the IOE. It's always delighted to welcome BERA, and I have to say, especially so in what has been such a fabulously successful year for the IOE. Most recently, we're delighted to say shortlisted for the Times Higher University of the Year award. Now, not only is this BERA's 40th birthday, but 40 years ago, this building was taking shape. Like perhaps too many of those who hit 40, we felt the need for the Botox, fillers, and something of a facelift, and our contractors have been in throughout the summer on the second phase of the refurbishment of the Bedford Way building. The refurbishment and the programme is by no means completely completed yet. The building's not completely refreshed, but we are on our way, and I hope you enjoy the improved facilities. As Ian has already said, BERA was founded in 1974, and this is its 40th birthday. So let me take you to 1974. And there we are. ABBA, Bjorn Borg resigning, Richard Nixon resigning, Streakers, the birth of the home computer, the birth of CFAX. For some of you, these images will look like ancient history. For others, they might conjure up your childhood. Where were you in 1974? And old photos always conjure mixed emotions. How much we've changed, how little we've changed. Germany, on the left there, winning the World Cup in 1974, so little has changed. And of course, always, did they really wear things like that? But there are two slightly more serious reflections from these pictures. One that's there and one that's hidden. Both have something to say, I think, about education research and BERA. Tucked into the middle of the bottom of the picture is a picture showing the motorway speed limit being reduced from 70 miles an hour to 55 miles an hour after the first oil price shock at the beginning of 1974. We didn't know it then, but it brought to an end the long post-war European boom and ushered in economic stringency. That stringency shaped the economics, politics, and public service debate of the following 40 years. It means that the education landscape of 2014 would have been unimaginable for the founders of BERA, and in a whole range of ways, the consequences of 1974 have hung over the development of education research. And now something hidden. At the top of the screen, the poster for Chinatown. Chinatown premiered in 1974 and showed a dark underworld in California. At the bottom, Bond movie, Man with the Golden Gun, also premiered with all the casual attitudes to violence and to sexism that mark the Bond franchise. This 1974 was a world less willing to acknowledge tough challenges and certainly less willing to acknowledge difference and diversity. Things have changed. Over 40 years, BERA has reflected vast changes in education and the world. Perhaps it's too often reflected them and too rarely shaped them. But its history is a proud and successful one, and as it enters middle age, it needs to remember that it's 40 years young, and that one of the things that we've learned since 1974 is just how lively, vigorous, and fulfilling life is, if you're only as old as you think you are. So, it is a 40th birthday. I'd like to wish BERA a happy birthday and welcome you to the IOE. No birthday is complete without a cake. And I did go back to my childhood in 1974, so in a phrase that marked one of the television programmes of my childhood, here's one we prepared earlier. And I'm happy to share the BERA cake.
Quick photo. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for giving us something to think about as well as to celebrate, and thanks very much for the cake, which may appear on the BERA stand later on for all signed up members to have a slice. So BERA was made in 1974, actually at much the same time as SERA, the Scottish Educational Research Association. I thought you'd be interested to see the programme of the BERA conference held at the University of Birmingham in 1974, the way it was. Some famous names on there, okay? Famous names, E. Stones, Edgar Stones, Maurice Cogan, John Binner, Gabriel Channon, etc., leading to the inaugural address by our founding president, John Nisbet. You see, at 12 noon, it took an hour for the conference to assemble, but that was because of what follows, I think. That happened again at 6:30 in the evening and before the dinner, and then the Constitutional Committee met after dinner. That would have been interesting. On day 2, we see the same pattern emerging. More Scots there, Donald McIntyre, N. Maynard from Dundee, MacLeod from Stirling, some English, Harlan, although she did work in Scotland as well, of course, Reading, etc., etc. And, well, it finishes, as all good conferences do, bar open, bar open, bar open. 12 o'clock, they have to reopen it at 12:15, and then again after the inaugural meeting. How times change. They didn't have 10-pin bowling, I note. Just bar open. It was pretty basic back then. But now, let's move on 40 years. This has been a very important year for BERA. We're delighted that we see the membership actually on the rise again, and we're going to continue that, aren't we, over this conference and beyond. We've had a record number of abstracts submitted for this year's conference. Over 30 SIG events, special interest groups, have become very, very active in BERA. We've had a major inquiry into research and teacher education, big initiative on BERA's behalf, which has been carried out in collaboration with the Royal Society for the Arts. We issued a whole set of documents on early years policy, done in association with another organisation called Tactic, and we instigated the annual lecture with Pasi Sahlberg speaking on the topic of the great education reform movement. We've been marking the 40 years in various ways. I hope if you're Twitters or tweeters, I'm never sure of the noun, that you will be aware that we've already started to drip feed the selection of 40 objects of educational research that have been made available over the past 40 years. We had the first decade, 74 to 83, live as of Sunday, I think, and we're doing a decade per day during conference, and it will be all published by the end of the week. We're also publishing on the web a timeline for BERA, which has been collected by Nick Rushby, and will be a very interesting record, which we can plan to continue to develop. A special issue of Burge, a virtual issue, celebrating some of the work that's appeared in there over the 40 years. And those of you who are members and do get that very excellent research intelligence magazine will have seen the reflective issue that celebrated many of the achievements. There's more to come. Whoops, sorry. The new set of insights that are just being published during conference, they're on the web already, and there are hard copies on the BERA desk. So do pick some up. This is what's to come. We're establishing an observatory of educational research to keep monitoring the state of health of educational research across Britain. We have got a number of SIGs. 6 of our SIGs have been collaborating on a very important project called Respecting Children and Young People. There's a blog, there have been events, and there'll be a major culmination event which you'll see flagged on our website. Well worth attending. We are in the process of commissioning some pre-election briefings looking to the general election next year. We're starting a project with SAGE on a handbook of educational research, the BERA Handbook of Educational Research, and we continue to develop our portfolio of awards, grants, fellowships. At Council yesterday, we agreed to start an international exchange fellowship with SAGE publishers. We wish to announce the launch of an impact award that will be given to researchers who can demonstrate particularly positive impact from their research. So there has been a lot going on, there is a lot going on, and there will be more going on. We need to say a big thank you to all those who volunteer to take roles within the association, particularly the SIG conveners. Many of them were here yesterday and will be running their own meetings of their SIGs later on today. They play such a crucial role. And actually, just on a sad note, yesterday after our AGM, we remembered Anna Kraft, who was the co-founder of the Creativity SIG, who very sadly died last month at the age of 52. And she was an example to us all of the kind of work that SIG conveners undertake. We also wish to thank our council members and committee members, some of whom are not council members but ordinary members of the association who play their part. Thanks go to our publishers. We particularly work with Wiley, with Taylor and Francis, and with SAGE, and you please will visit their stands and the other stands in the exhibition. And that's the final point here. Please, thanks to our sponsors, thanks to the exhibitors, please do go and see what they have got on their stands. I've already thanked, but I'd like to reiterate it, the conference committee led by Felicity Whiteley, and also thank all of the staff in our office. It's become a very professional outfit over recent years, led by Nick Johnson, supported by Fazana Rahman, Marie Blythe, our events manager, who's played a key role in getting the conference together, and a welcome to Sarah Mills-McEwen, who's taken over the membership officer role recently from Mark Donoghue. And if you're not already aware, we will be moving to run our conference entirely by ourselves next year. And so at the end of this conference, we'll be thanking in conference the organisers who've worked collaboratively with us over many years now, and thanking them for all that they have done. Here is the homily if you haven't already got the message. If you're not a member, please do consider it. You get discounted conference registration, 4 journals, weekly bulletins on research news, the Research Intelligence Journal, the Insights Bulletins, fellowships and awards to be won, opportunities to represent BERA around the world, but don't think you can all go at once, and membership of special interest groups. So join now for 2015. So we now move not to an award exactly, but to a very special thanks. A farewell and thanks. Last year, as she stood down as president of BERA, Mary James handed me the baton. We were in Brighton, so it was a stick of rock. Still uneaten, I'm afraid, Mary. Well, now the time has come for you to really step down. For the past year, Mary has been vice president, supporting the President, keeping him in line. And certainly, personally, Mary, I want to thank you for the support you've given me during this year. It's been wonderful and extremely helpful. But I want to thank you on behalf of the whole association as well. Your wisdom, your good humour, your knowledge and your networks have all been to BERA's benefit, and you're going to be very sorely missed. You've enhanced the reputation of the association both across the UK and internationally. You've been attempting to retire for some time now, not only to spend more time with your family, but also to spend more time with your horse. Because for those of you that don't know, Mary is a very keen rider. And while my idea was to give this stick of rock back to Mary as her leaving present, but the office staff, in their wisdom, had a better idea. So would you like to come up here, please, Mary, and accept something from us to recognise your huge contribution to BERA? This is a riding crop. So every time you encourage your horse to speed up, you'll think of BERA. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Mary, there's also a little box of BERA goodies as well, but we have a photograph as well. Oh, we call it a stick, apparently. Okay. Thank you, Mary. We're now going to move on to the actual awards and celebrate a lot of successes. First of all, in fact, one of the things Mary succeeded in doing was converting the British Curriculum Foundation, incorporating it into BERA as the British Curriculum Forum. And they issue a prize through the Curriculum Journal, and we have 2 commendations for that prize, Tim Kane and Rachel Wardle, and secondly, the University of Stirling with East Lothian Council. But I'd like to invite Helen Wheeler from Routledge to come and join us to present the actual award. Is Helen there? Yes, please come up, Helen. And I'm very delighted to announce that this award goes to a team of people led by Dr. Celia Jenkins from the University of Westminster, their study on the Alevi Religion and Identity Action Research Project. So may I invite you up to accept this award? Thank you very much. Thank you, Helen. We are also awarding the Brian Simon Fellowship, established in memory of Brian Simon, great historian of education and campaigner, of course, former BERA president. And this year, the award's been made to Dr. Joanna Waters at the University of Oxford for what will prove to be a very interesting study, I think, into internationalisation in secondary schools. Joanna's not with us today, but we congratulate her in her absence. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the BERA John Nisbet Fellowship. And there will be 2 awards for this year of this fellowship. John, who you saw, gave his inaugural presidential address in 1974 to BERA, and that is available on the website, as is an obituary that was published after his death in late 2012. We're delighted today to have been joined by members of his family, his daughter Liz Wallace and his son-in-law, her husband Joe, came on the megabus from Aberdeen. Congratulations to be with us today. And also the daughter of John's brother Stanley Nisbet, Isabel, who some of you know through the assessment world, is with us as well. It's worth just pausing to tell a very short tale about the brothers Nisbet. Stanley was the older by several years, and he was Professor of Education at Glasgow, where he is remembered at an annual lecture. But in the early 1970s, the time we're thinking about, Stanley was actually a key figure in the development of the Scottish Educational Research Association, while John, who was very much a kind of younger brother to Stanley, played a major role in the development and creation of BERA. Well, it's great, isn't it, that both organisations have lasted so well and both continue to cooperate and collaborate. And while we may indeed need to reassess the relationship within this union in the light of last week's referendum, we can be assured that that relationship will now continue. John Nisbet held the chair at Aberdeen, Chair of Education at Aberdeen for many years, and his major contribution, I think, reading the history, it was really to play a major part in establishing education as a social science. And many of you will remember the different contributions he made towards that end. Now, in order to help to make these two awards, I would like to invite Liz and Joe Wallace to come and join us on the platform, if you would be so kind. Thank you very much. Do you want to go and just sit down for a few minutes while I announce the awards and then come over? Thank you. Wonderful privilege to be able to formally announce the first two John Nisbet Fellowships, the inaugural recipients of the John Nisbet Award. They are two outstandingly worthy candidates for this award. Firstly, Professor Paul Black, who is here with us. He is Professor of Science Education at King's College. He is a physicist who, fortunately for us, became interested in assessment in education. So in 1976, moved from a chair in physics to a chair in science education, first at Chelsea College and then at King's. In 1987, in one of the Thatcher government's more enlightened policy decisions, he was appointed as chair of TGAT, the Task Group on Assessment and Testing, and subsequently became deputy chair of the National Curriculum Council. Working as an academic in such circles was no easier then than it is now. However, the immense interest in and understanding that we now have of formative assessment in particular and its relationship to other aspects is due in huge measure to Paul's painstaking, continuing and unswerving commitment and passion. Yes, he collaborated with others. He would be the first to remind us. Dylan William, of course, and the Assessment Reform Group, of which Mary was also a member. I've just got to find my next page. But throughout that whole period, it's been Paul whose steady hand has kept the impetus going in relation to assessment. Paul, we want to thank you as an association for the work you've done, and also thank you for accepting this award, which I'd now like to invite Liz Wallace to present to you. Paul.
I'm overawed by this honour. It is so special. 40th anniversary in honour of John Nisbet. What more can one ask for? And I'm very grateful to BERA for setting all this up and for honouring me in this way, because the achievements, such as they are, have been achieved with the help of many people, notably BERA and the Assessment Reform Group. So I owe a lot. Standing on the shoulders of giants are the metaphor that occurs. And I would recommend one activity in which I indulged the last few weeks, which is to reread John Nisbet's inaugural lecture, as you say, on the website. It's full of insights. It's certainly not out of date. It has great things in it. One bit that I picked up is his discussion of the relationship between innovation and research. And he talked about whether innovation is based on research or not, and it wasn't. And there are notable examples, though, the curriculum developments, and other examples like free schools and Michael Gove. But more interestingly, research and innovation. How do we establish the link, make it work between research and innovation? On its own, taking too long on its own, research can be indulgent. But putting it into innovation is an enormous problem, I think requires far more study. But I have a half-hour lecture on that, but I've been told that I can't. So anyway, thank you indeed. And for protecting this audience from more of me. Thank you, Paul.
Now, the second recipient of the Nisbet Award was expecting to be here herself as well, but really living out what Paul's just referred to about policy and innovation. She was called to a certain department for education this morning, and unless I speak very slowly, she's unlikely to get here in time to receive the award herself. But we have got a plan B, which I will tell you about in a moment. I'm still going to read the notes I have about Cathy Silver. She is a colleague of mine, in fact, at the University of Oxford, where she is Professor of Educational Psychology. Cathy took her doctorate at Harvard University before moving to Oxford to work with Jerome Bruner in the Oxford Preschool Research Group. Those of you working in early years will know of her early work child watching at playgroup and nursery school. During the 1990s, she spent some years in London working on early reading and was co-director of the RSA inquiry into early years education. Moving back to Oxford in the late 90s, she became one of the directors of what was then the Effective Preschool and Primary Education Project. Subsequently, 17 years later, just been to its closing ceremony at the DFE a couple of weeks ago, it became the Effective Preschool, Primary and Secondary Education Project, which I think can justly be described as unique in British educational research. Unique in two particular respects. One, its longevity. A project running 17 years is rare and I suspect unique, at least in the terms of a freestanding project of that sort. And secondly, in respect of its impact from research into policy, into practice. BERA is very proud of that project. There's a symposium, I think it's tomorrow in the programme. It's an outstanding example of high-quality research with maximum impact. We know that this too has been a massive team effort, and Cathy's great contribution to it has only been the most recent part of her own contribution to educational research. Long may that contribution continue. I'm just sorry that Cathy couldn't be here to be with us. She was very much looking forward to it, and I'm very pleased that Brenda Taggart, who's one of the co-principal investigators on the EPSI project, who is based here at the Institute, has kindly agreed to accept the award on Cathy's behalf. Please come up, Brenda, and I'd invite Joe Wallace to present the award on behalf of Cathy.
Kathy is possibly in a taxi as we speak, so if she suddenly appears over there, I'll get her to hop up here very quickly. Kathy and I have worked together for over 17 years on the EPSI study, and we often joke it's longer than some marriages. But we've had a very happy collaboration. She'd very much like me to say to you how honoured she is to accept this award. Awards are always wonderful, but when they're given to you by your peers, it is very special. She's particularly delighted to have accepted award on a platform alongside of Paul. I know that she will treasure this.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you and congratulations, Paul and Kathy, and a real tribute to a lifetime's contribution to our work. If you wish to follow the conference electronically, here's a few tweet addresses, hashtags, websites. Please do contribute, please do follow. We've got an exciting few days ahead of us. Do enjoy the conference, and we have immediately now, we're already running a few minutes late, so please move as quickly as you can. Go to the keynote symposia, which will commence immediately. Welcome and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.